Welcome into the Paul Farrington Show. Paul doing a solo record today. We'll be recording later with Jack and Ziggy doing an NFC North deep dive. What went wrong for the Vikings, the Packers, the Lions, and the Bears this season. A lot of stuff also went right in that division. You take a look. You had three teams in the playoffs. Unfortunately, none of them were able to get a win, but very successful seasons. They lost to, 4 or 5 teams outside of the division all year combined between the Vikings, the Lions, and the Packers. And the Bears, now with Ben Johnson in place, looking like the future's pretty bright there. We're going to talk about the NFC North a lot. It's going to be a fun show today. I'm looking ahead at the 10 biggest storylines in the Super Bowl, ranking them 10 to 1. That won't go on too long. I promise I won't drone on about that. A little bit on Sam Darnold's future with the Vikings, the Packers, what they need to change. One of the biggest issues they had all season, I'm going to touch on at the end of the show. First, I just want to touch on something briefly from the Chiefs and the Bills game. If you've been enjoying the content so far, this postseason or all the regular season, please remember to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. The best thing you can do is to send over this link, to send over this channel to your friends. Tell them that you're enjoying the show. Tell them to come and hang out with us. You can leave comments on Twitter, Instagram, any social media forum, Reddit. We see it all. We try to respond to as much as we can. We really do see everything, though. And a lot of times in our group chat, we're laughing about the messages that people write. Whether they're positive or negative, it's always great to have some sort of interaction. So we appreciate everybody who's been sticking around with us. You can also follow us on TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, all the social media platforms. If you can't listen on YouTube, you can always watch. You can always listen as well on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. You could become a member. We're going to have some fun giveaways this offseason. There's a lot of fun things going on the channel as we look to elevate up another level. Like so many teams during the offseason, we're going to try and elevate up to another level. That's why you're going to have some more solo shows, maybe some more shows where it's just Ziggy, or maybe we even try a Jack one, trying to get more content out. And as we enter our 4th season now of really being an actual podcast, trying to take that jump into the higher tier, the upper tier of sports media shows. So we really hope that you guys come along for the ride. Looking at this Chiefs-Bills game real quick, there's so much talk. There is so much talk about the refs and that 4th down call for 4th and 1 for the Bills and the Dalton Kincaid drop. And there's just been a firestorm around in the media and discussing those two plays. First off, I want to say there was a lot of opportunities for Buffalo in this game, and there were also a lot of opportunities that the Chiefs didn't have go their way. If you go back and look at this. Early in the game, Buffalo on their second drive, they're driving downfield. Josh Allen fumbles a snap. That led to a field goal there. That drive was stalled from that play. You had the Chiefs had a fumble as well that Buffalo recovered. You had 2 2-point conversions, each one for each team that didn't work out. There were so many different things in this game that you can point to and say, hey, that was a huge momentum swing that we're really focusing in on these two. And I understand the whole story of the Chiefs and the refs being a thing throughout this season, which is, look, there have been some calls that have gone Kansas City's way. I certainly thought the Falcons game was a bad example. But a lot of times, they are penalties, guys. I know the Texans, the roughing the passer wasn't good, but you go back to the Bengals game, yeah, on that 4th down or 3rd, whatever it was, I think it was a 4th down play, Kansas City guy got shoved in the back by Cincinnati. That's a penalty. Isaiah Likely's foot was out of bounds in the Baltimore game. That's the Chiefs have gotten lucky. They blocked a kick against the Broncos, but that's a great play from the Chiefs. Aiden O'Connell dropped the ball on the Raiders on that drive. These are things that went Kansas City's way, but at the end of the day, Aiden O'Connell can only blame himself. Isaiah Likely was barely out of bounds. I feel like most of the time these Chiefs things have gotten a little bit out of control. I get that no one wants to see teams win over and over again. When the Warriors had Kevin Durant, it was must watch when they were in the finals playing against LeBron James, and there was this helpless feeling that the Cavaliers had. I remember watching that game 1 when LeBron had 50 and J.R. Smith forgot the time on the clock. One of my favorite games I ever watched because I was ruining my ass off for the Cavs because I hated Golden State and I just didn't want to see them continue to win. But there are some teams that are just really, really good, and a lot of times the good teams have things go their way for some reason. So I just couldn't get... I could get too mad at the refs, even on the 4th down sneak. That play was so close. Do I think he got it? Gun to my head? Probably by an inch. But I thought it was... I didn't think the Bills were robbed. That was also early in the 4th quarter. You know what the Bills also could have done? Got a stop. or went down the field and won the game when they had the ball. Like, the Bills had more opportunities. Yes, it was a questionable call, but it wasn't egregious. It wasn't one that I sat back and went, wow, this game is over. And you're looking around the media sphere and people are acting like the Bills got completely hosed. I don't think that was the case. I think it was a very close call. Could have gone either way. Yes, it went the Chiefs' way. I mean, remember when we had the foot on the line a year ago with Kelsey being offsides or whoever? I can't remember who was offsides, but in the Chiefs-Bills game, like, yeah, sometimes there are calls that go against the Chiefs as well. I just didn't think that this was as big of a deal as people were making that one out to be. And then, you know, one other thing, going for two, let me know what you guys think in the comment section here. I hate going for two earlier in the game, unless you really have to. I understand where the analytics point to, and Ziggy would probably come on and say you should always go for two. But in football, it's so hard to get every single point that if you have the opportunity to put a point on the board, how often do you see late in the games when teams go for two and fail, where you're thinking to yourself, oh, if we only had that point, we'd be down 8 instead of 9 right now. Like, we'd have our shot. Or if only we hadn't gone for two, it would be a 3-point game right now. I understand the other side of that is, yes, if you had gotten the 2-point conversion, you're in a much better position. But it's just, I don't know. To me, get the points when you can and worry about going for two when you have to. That's my philosophy, at least. And maybe look, I'm a Viking fan. I've never won a Super Bowl. Or my team's never won a Super Bowl. Maybe that's why. But Dalton Kincaid, you know, he's been getting crushed. And I feel bad for Dalton. Jack came on a couple of years ago before the draft and said Dalton Kincaid was the best player he's ever seen in college football. And he was joking around a little bit, but he was a monster back when he was in college. And Josh Allen's come out and said all the right things he always does, supporting Dalton. You saw Dawson Knox come out talking about how he's been battling a torn PCL in one of his knees. Like, again, at the end of the day, this is a 25-year-old kid. It was a tough play. You go and you watch the end zone view of the play. Kind of an unbelievable throw from Josh Allen. And it's unfortunate that the Bills weren't able to pick up that blitz better. I know that you could look at some of the linemen just wound up blocking nobody on that play. I don't know what the protection call was. I wouldn't be smart enough to know either. But when you watch from, what the extended view, Kincaid was wide open. Like, it would have been wide. It could have been a touchdown, honestly, if it had been picked up correctly. Sort of how when Notre Dame was playing Ohio State, when you have a cover zero, I don't think this was a cover zero. I need to look again. But when you have a blitz like that, you got to get home. And the Chiefs did get home. Notre Dame didn't get home. And we got burned in that game. So Chiefs do get home. They're able to force the errant throw. And look, it was a great throw. But yeah, if he had been able to lead Dalton, that would have been the best throw ever. But Dalton was run full speed one direction, cuts back, I guess, on a injured knee. Probably should make the catch, yeah. Like, he's a professional athlete. He's a professional tight end. He's paid to make those catches, to beat the Chiefs, to go to the Super Bowl. You probably need to make that play. Because look, we're talking about one of the greatest dynasties in the history of sports. Probably need to make that dive and catch. But it's a hard play. I understand how he could drop that. But for Bills fans, look, like, let's not pretend like Tyler Bass is going to make the kick, right? And we can throw all the shade we want at Dalton Kincaid, but we all know that kick was going wide right, probably. It's not no shade on Tyler Bass. It's just when you're a Bills player or a Vikings player, you're not making that kick, right? Like, in Arrowhead Stadium, someone would have fumbled. The kick would have been blocked. You would have had something ridiculous happen. Mahomes gets the ball with 5 seconds, throws a Hail Mary to win the game. Something bad was going to happen to the Bills in this situation. It always does. And unfortunately for Dalton Kincaid, he just happened to be the unlucky bastard who had his name pulled out of the hat for this game. So, like, that's a little tongue-in-cheek, but come on. Were the Bills really going to win that game, given their history with Kansas City? I don't know. Actually, if he caught it, would have been pretty close. But I just think about the misery meter of teams right now. Who's the most miserable teams today? As I'm recording this on, January 28th? Oh, happy birthday to our good friend of the show, Lindsay. She turns 23 today. Happy birthday. So the misery meter for teams on January 28th, I think at the top of that, who stands alone, burn it down, the Buffalo Bills fans have to be the most miserable in the sport right now. just another brutal loss to KC. I think you go down a tier. And again, this isn't just who's the most miserable in general, because there are teams that just suck. And I would rather be a fan of the Bills for sure than I would the Browns. But where's your misery at right now? I think the Vikings, the Ravens, and the Lions make up that next tier. The like, woe is me tier. Why does this always happen to us? The Ravens are probably at the top of that, where just great seasons and feels like it was wasted. The Mark Andrews drop, Jared Goff and Sam Darnold having two of their worst games of the season in the playoffs when it mattered. The way it ended for Minnesota, particularly. I think those three fan bases are not happy. Go down another level to the numb tier, the don't feel anything tier. We're so bad that we just don't even care right now. I think you got the Giants, the Browns, and the Raiders. Pete Carroll's an exciting ad for Vegas, but I don't know. Like is he really that exciting? I guess you want stability. That's why you hired Pete. You want stability. There's no dreams of the Super Bowl right now. The Giants, they're hoping to get their quarterback as long as you don't have Shador and Cam go 1-2. Maybe they'll get their guy. Or at least they could get Travis Hunter in there with a top 3 pick. That's exciting, but they've been so bad for so long. And the Browns are just always, the Browns are, that's just constant hell. And you have this Deshaun Watson thing looming over you still. That's misery. I think you go down one more. So that's what, 1, 2, that's 4, 7 teams. Maybe we could get top 10 here. The Bears, I think the Bears are in a really nice position. I'd be really excited if I were a Bears fan. But they're probably an automatic qualifier in the misery meter just because something always goes wrong. I'm going to put them in there, and the Jets as an automatic qualifier. Again, you're probably more miserable right now if you're like a Saints fan. Man, I'd hate to be a Saints fan right now. I just don't think there's anything going right for that organization. I know you have Carr, but like that's not doing anything for me. So I'll put the Jets and the Bears in as automatic qualifiers, even though I think you got to be excited about the Aaron Glenn hire. There's reason for optimism there. Probably unreasonable optimism given who you are as a franchise. Then last on this list, let's see, you got a few teams. The Cowboys, Patriots, and you got Drake May there. Dolphins have been just so bad for so long. Like I know they had a couple years of Tua, but feels like they're stuck. I'll go Jaguars. They had so many expectations. And they were so bad this year with Lawrence. Liam Cohen comes in. I think they're another team similar to the Jets there, where there is optimism. And the Bears, there's optimism around that franchise. But right now, it's just still like, when is it our turn? When are we going to get there? All right, let's move on here to the top 10 Super Bowl storylines. I think this is going to be pretty fun. Eagles and Chiefs. There are a lot of storylines coming into this game. For as much as we wanted to see Josh Allen have his chance and to take down Patrick Mahomes, and as much as we wanted the Commanders and Jane Daniels to have their opportunity, the rematch is pretty cool here. And there's a lot of build up to this game. And I think people will get more excited as we go along. This is a better game than probably any of the other matchups we could have had, which is one reason I'm kind of excited for it. And as someone who really hates the Eagles, it continues to give me reason to watch. I kind of think of it like, as a New Jersey Devils fan, for instance, or a Yankees fan, like I'll enjoy is not the right word, but I'll pay attention longer to the NHL playoffs when the Rangers are in, or around here living in Jersey, I'll pay attention to the MLB playoffs the longer the Mets are in, assuming my team is out, because I have a team I'm rooting against. And it's that weird push and pull where it's like I'm always rooting against them, but when they win, it's another round of me actually kind of caring about who's playing in these games. So it's fun and it keeps you interested up until they're actually in that championship game. It's like, oh, wait, I remember when the Mets played the Royals back in 2015, 2016. I was like, oh, shoot, like they can't actually win this. I was in high school then and Mets fans were going crazy. It's like, it's fun to root against them here. Like, but if they win, this is going to become hell. So I feel like you got that a little bit with the Eagles. There are so many people who dislike them that you're more interested in this Super Bowl with the Eagles in it than not. But at the same time, if they win it, now we've reached the point where it becomes a problem if they win that last game. So the top 10 storylines in the Super Bowl, an honorable mention, and I'm going to leave it out here. I think a lot of people would have been really pissed at me if I put it in. But if you had Taylor Swift as a top 10 storyline, you're probably wrong for this game. I think that last year it was a big story, and whether or not people like that, her dating Travis Kelce was a pretty big storyline moving into it. I mean, she was on TV. Like she became part of that Chiefs story. And this year it's more of, all right, she's just at all the games. They're showing her way less on TV as well. But I think that's an honorable mention. They are 19-3 at the game she's at. That's partially because the Chiefs just don't lose anymore. But I'm going to put that as an honorable mention. Don't get mad at me for having it as an honorable mention. She's the most famous person on earth. It's the Super Bowl. She's dating the star player. That's a story. But we'll leave it out of the top 10. At number 10, I'm going to put Howie Roseman. And his job as GM with the Eagles, just the great additions he's made season after season. Now, Jalen Carter drops. He gets Jalen Carter. Saquon Barkley's a free agent. He goes after Saquon Barkley. The A.J. Brown trade. I don't think Howie Roseman's doing anything revolutionary. You know what he's doing? He sees a great player available, and he says, hey, let me try and get that player. I don't know why other teams can't replicate it. I'm not quite sure. It's like he's playing Madden almost. When I play Madden and I'm on franchise mode, if I see the best player in the league's available, I'm going to go and get him. If I see a player in the draft that's better than everyone else is sitting there and no one's making a move for some reason, yeah, I'll go get him. It made no sense to me when Jalen Carter fell. Like, Howie Roseman has to feel like he's playing with children half the time here. Like, so look, some of these picks don't work out. You know, like Ringo fell in the draft. And everyone thought, oh, it's another steal. That one didn't really work out. But when you have like Quinion Mitchell falling in the draft and Cooper DeJean, all these guys that everyone touted as high cornerback prospects, Eagles need a cornerback. Go get him. Like it's not rocket science sometimes, right? Just make the move that makes sense. And I don't know. I remember seeing it with like Tyrann Mathieu. Fell to the third round. Like some people, like Kyle Hamilton. I mean, I almost punched a wall when the Vikings were on the clock. If you've listened to this show for a while, you know the story. Like when Kyle Hamilton, I was helping produce Kyle's podcast at the time, when he fell to the Vikings a couple of years ago, and the Vikings needed a safety badly, and in Kwesi's first year as general manager, he traded that pick back to the Lions, who added Jameson Williams with that pick, by the way. And then 14 picks later, the Vikings selected Louis Cine, another safety. I was like, what the hell are we doing here? I thought Kyle was going to be a top 5 safety in the league in 2 years. He was. Yep, all pro. First team all pro, second year. Like some people are just good at football and you just have to get them on your team, right? Like it's not rocket science all the time. Jalen Carter's great at football. Add him. So I think Howie Roseman's one of the storylines. Number 9, I'm going to go Nick Sirianni finishing the job. His ability to coach a team has been called into question so many times throughout his tenure in Philadelphia. And you had Shane Steichen, you had Jonathan Gannon in that first run of the Super Bowl. Both those coordinators were gone. They regressed a bit last season. Well, now you're back, and you have this Vic Fangio and Kellen Moore here. I think that Nick Sirianni is made fun of a lot. A lot of people don't like him, the antics. But look, you make 2 Super Bowls in 3 years. If you win one here, you're probably doing something right, regardless of what people are saying about you. So I think Nick Sirianni, him finishing the job, comes in at number 9. I'm going to keep it with the coaches for now before we get into some of the better storylines, at least in my opinion. At 8, Andy Reid winning his 4th Super Bowl. That would tie him with Chuck Noll for the second most all time. He would become one of 3 coaches ever to win 4 Super Bowls or more. Belichick's at 6. Now we start talking about that chase down of Belichick. Reid's 67 years old. Does he want to stick around a little longer? If you win 3 in a row, it's hard to just hang it up. You think about Michael Jordan and the documentary, The Last Dance, when they're like, hey, why wouldn't we keep going with this? You know, looking back on it, I'm sure they all regret not trying to go for that 4th straight ring. It's hard. It's fun to end your career on top of the mountain, but then you're always left with that question of what if we had kept going? Like there is something that is a little peaceful about the finality of it. And when you are finally beaten by someone else, like that passing of the torch moment, even though it's great to finish as the best, I think you're always left with that little inkling of a thought in the back of your mind. What if we'd kept going? Like how great could we have been? And you get some peace with the finality of losing eventually, as weird as that sounds. So I think Andy Reid will come back, even if they do win, and keep going on this run. I think Kelsey will come back too. Number, what am I on here? 8, 7 here? Yeah, I think I'm on 7, 10, 9, 8, 7. Yeah. Jalen Hurts. I'm sorry. I'm going to go with how unhappy everyone is with this game at number 7. I think that's actually a storyline. People seem really pissed off that this is the Super Bowl. 1, the Chiefs and the refs. 2, everyone hates the Eagles. No one really wanted to see this game. Again, I don't care. Like, once the Vikings are out, it doesn't matter. I root against teams. So yeah, I'm rooting against Philly. I actually am pretty excited to watch this game. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. But it is pretty unbelievable just how pissed off. Very rarely in my life do I recall getting as many text messages just saying, I'm just not going to watch the Super Bowl, or this is the worst case scenario, when people don't even care about these teams. I've had friends who have no affiliation with the Chiefs or the Eagles who are just like, I'm done. I don't feel like watching. There are a lot of fans in our comment section who have been like, why am I going to watch these games? It's rigged. I think that is a storyline of how hated these two teams are, for better or worse, around the league. At number 6, I'm going to go Jalen Hurts. I may have spoiled it before, silencing the doubters as well. Kind of the same way Nick Sirianni is going to. Jalen Hurts is now in his 2nd Super Bowl in 3 years. He's had a lot of question marks around him as a quarterback, being able to throw the football in particular. I think he's awesome. I think he does a lot of winning things. He has a lot of winning attributes, whether that's, hey, we want to talk about the tush push, the brotherly shove. That's a Jalen Hurts thing. Like, yes, the Philadelphia Eagles have a great offensive line and they scheme it up really well, but Jalen Hurts is unbelievable at those short yardage situations. And you see around the league, most teams cannot replicate it. That's why I wouldn't ban it, because it is an advantage for the Eagles because they're great at it. You saw in the Bills game, you have Josh Allen. Was he 6'6" or 6'7"? He struggles to get a yard sometimes. The Chiefs won that game on them getting a couple big 4th and 1, 3rd and 1 stops. And it's unbelievable. Like, that is something that Jalen Hurts does better than maybe anyone in the history of the game. He does that well. I think he when he's on, I think he does a great job of avoiding sacks and turning big negative plays into either net zero, or sometimes he escapes and makes a positive play out of it. He's not on the level of Mahomes and Allen and Burrow and Lamar, but I do think that he's probably on that next tier in terms of quarterbacks around the league. So winning the Super Bowl, again, winning silences everyone. Losing makes situations a lot bigger than they have to be, but winning can also shut everyone up. So I think Jalen Hurts has a situation. The top 5 here. Mahomes chasing down Tom Brady with Tom Brady in the booth. Tom Brady being the color commentator for this game. Like, I know most people don't care. I think it's kind of cool. He's the face of the sport, the most winning quarterback ever, best player in the history of the game. You have the LeBron James to his Michael Jordan playing in the game. He's going to be announcing it. Like, imagine Michael Jordan announcing the games with LeBron James in the finals. I just think that's kind of cool. Mahomes would be the 4th quarterback to ever win 4 Super Bowls. If he were to get a win here, that ties him with Joe Montana and Terry Bradshaw, and will put him 3 behind Brady. And it's, God, has to be so nice to be a Chiefs fan. We're here talking about Patrick Mahomes being 3 Super Bowls behind Tom Brady, saying, yeah, he's got a real shot at catching him. 7. A real shot at catching 7 Super Bowls. And he's in his 7th year in the league. That's pretty unbelievable. That's a spoiled fan base, I'll tell you what. I've been waiting around for 26 years. There are a lot of people listening to this show who've been waiting around a lot longer. And we're out here talking about Mahomes winning 4 Super Bowls and saying he might be able to catch Brady. And they're asking him in interviews, and Mahomes is like, I'm trying to narrow that gap because Tom's got a big lead. Unbelievable what they're doing. I think that's a storyline. 4, the Chiefs and the refs. Kansas City getting big calls. That's something that's been going on all year. I talked about it off the top of the show. The ultimate Super Bowl love story. Kansas City and the officials. Will there be a big penalty? Will there be a big call? Will there be a big flag picked up that goes in Kansas City's way? It's been something people have been talking about all season long. Whether it should be or should not be an actual story, that's for you to decide. But that's something that people are going to be paying attention to and talking about and have been talking about all year. That's number 4. 3, the Eagles' revenge. This, in most situations, I think would be the number 1 storyline. Of Philadelphia losing 2 years ago to the Chiefs, the same team. A lot of the key players are still in this story. Jalen Hurts is there. Nick Sirianni's there. Andy Reid, Mahomes, Kelsey, Darius Slay. You could go down the list. Chris Jones. A lot of these players are still on this team. It hasn't been that long. So that revenge factor in the minds of Eagles fans, that has to be right there at the top. I know if the Vikings were playing in this game and we were in the Eagles situation, revenge would be the number one thing on my mind, justifying the loss a couple of years ago. And that was a great game. Remember, the Eagles tied it at 35, and then the Chiefs went down the field, and they had that call. I believe it was on James Bradbury, a hold on James Bradbury, that gave the Chiefs a first down, let them run out the clock and win the game 38-35, never giving Philly a real chance at moving down the field to tie the game at the end there. That's something that we're going to have to watch. Those Chiefs and the refs calls, that'll be brought up again. But Eagles revenge is number 3 for me. Okay, the top 2. Number 2, Saquon Barkley. It's Saquon on the Super Bowl stage. The amount of attention Saquon's got all year long, regardless of the playoff run, which has been unbelievable. But regardless of that, he's been under the microscope all year because of the move to the Giants. You saw in Hard Knocks, you saw John Mara saying anyone but the Eagles, Joe Shane bringing up that we're not paying Daniel Jones $40 million to hand off to Saquon. That's been a story the entire year. And I think the entire year, the Giants have regretted their decision. I was talking, my friend Tom Keenan was talking about how the Giants won nothing with Saquon, and why should they regret letting him go? I was like, Tom, are you watching the games? Look what he's doing out here. He ran for 2,000 yards. He's averaging 147 rushing yards per game in the playoffs. He has 5 touchdowns in 3 games. 30 rushing yards for Barkley breaks Terrell Davis' single-season record of 2,476 rushing yards from 1998. 240 total yards. He's the first player ever to combine rushing and receiving for 3,000 total yards in a season. I mean, it's one of the most unbelievable offensive seasons. He's going to win Offensive Player of the Year. One of the most unbelievable offensive years we've ever seen. And I've said this time and again, he's the closest thing I've seen to Adrian Peterson since AP was in the league. This is a guy that's going to go down as probably one of the top 10 running backs in the history of football. And this is his moment here. In the year where he's been out there to prove it, there's got to be a sticking point to the Giants here in the back of his mind this entire time. You had your franchise running back, and you don't say that often, a franchise running back. You let him go to your rival. Watch me go win the Super Bowl, and watch me be the main ingredient on that offense when we do win. That's what Saquon Barkley's saying. He's the star of this Eagles team. And that's not often the case when you have a player as good as Jalen Hurts, when you have players as good as A.J. Brown on this team. He's the number 2 story to me. And number 1, obviously, it's the quest for the three-peat. Mahomes, Andy Reid, Travis Kelce. No team's ever done it before. Never done by Brady, never done by Montana, never done by Chuck Nolan, those Steelers teams. Never done by my Vikings teams, even though we made 3 and 4 years. They'd be the second team to win 4 Super Bowls in a 6-year span, joining the 1970 Steelers. That's been on their mind all year long. 15-2, they're not winning in impressive ways, but the whole time it's been, let's get to the playoffs and show everybody what we can do. We're in the business of winning Super Bowls. It almost felt like they coasted through the regular season. And now you go and beat the Texans, you go and beat the Buffalo, you get Philly here. You can't doubt how great they are when they're beating the best teams in the league, right? If they beat the Eagles here, even though the entire season everyone's saying they're frauds, their last 2 wins are the Chiefs and the Bills. Are the Bills and the Eagles. Probably the second, third best teams in the league right now. Maybe Detroit's in there. That's number 1, the quest for the three-peat. So running it down, you got Howie Roseman, then you got Nick Sirianni proving people wrong, Andy Reid's 4th Super Bowl. At 7, how unhappy everyone is with the game. Jalen Hurts silencing the doubters at 6. Mahomes and Brady at 5 with Brady in the booth. The Chiefs and the refs at 4. Eagles revenge at 3. Saquon at 2. And the three-peat at number 1. 2 final thoughts here before wrapping up the show. I hope everyone's enjoying me going solo. Let me know in the comments section any areas that I can improve on. I've done a handful of solo shows throughout my career. I guess you can say career. As a broadcaster, and they're fun, but it is kind of weird when you're just talking into a camera and there's really no one else in the room. So let me know if there's anything that you think I can do better, whether it's the cadence or the tone, whatever. You throw around whatever words you want. So first I'm going to start with the Vikings. I have Vikings and Packers, then we'll get out of here. I've seen a lot of people talking about Kevin O'Connell, Sam Darnold, his future in Minnesota, saying that KOC hinted at Darnold not returning after the Rams game. And the quote was, I just want to say it's very important. We all think about Sam's body of work, what he was able to do this year when not many people thought he would be able to lead them to 14 wins. Very rare for a quarterback in his first year. In fact, it is rare. Most wins for a first-year quarterback with the team. Just the way he came in, committed himself to a daily process to be the best version of himself. Here it is. It did not work out in the end, and I think Sam would be the first one to tell you. Could he have played better tonight? I'm sure he would tell you that he could have. Could I have coached better? I promise you I could have. So people are focusing in on that. It did not work out in the end. He's not talking about Sam's time in Minnesota. He's talking about the last 2 games winning the Super Bowl. I like that. That to me, it seems very clear. I'm going to pump the brakes. If anything, that quote makes me think that Kevin O'Connell is indicating he'll judge Sam Darnold on the season as a whole, which was an unbelievable season for Sam. He was in the MVP running up until the last game of the season. So I'm not looking at this saying, yeah, he's done in Minnesota. People are talking about Sam Darnold's Instagram posts, thanking the Vikings, a lot of players. He's not even thanking the Vikings, thanking his teammates and the fans, saying, great year. A lot of people do that. So I'm not ready to say it's over for Sam in Minnesota. My gut is telling me the Vikings are leaning towards JJ McCarthy for next season. And I think the reason for that is this is just what I think the Vikings are thinking. The ceiling with Sam Darnold was seen this year, and you are reminded of the floor at the end and how that floor against better competition can oftentimes be he looked like one of the worst quarterbacks in the league in those games, especially the Lions game. If you are able to get consistently great Sam Darnold, we are talking about an MVP caliber player, given the talent he has on the Vikings around him. Sam was making some really tough throws. The Vikings were 14-3 for crying out loud. Like you can't look at Sam and say that he's a bad quarterback. That's just not the case. If the Raiders get him, he'll bring some stability to that position. Again, I think it's stability. Him and Pete Carroll will help the Raiders at least have a higher floor than they've had for the past few seasons. My guess is the Vikings look at that and say, we can probably, or we're hoping and expecting to get that level of production from JJ McCarthy while raising the floor that Sam Darnold has. So I think they expect that ceiling, that elite ceiling, to be able to be matched by JJ, while also raising up how negative it can be. Whereas at the end of the year, you saw just how bad it could get if Sam is off, or if you pressure him. And to be fair to Sam, in the Rams game in particular, offensive line was horrible. But that's my guess. And then if you take a look at another reason the Vikings were able to rebound so quickly this year, especially on the defensive side of the ball, Sam was only making $10 million. You add on 35, 40, whatever it is for next season and the year beyond, that's a lot of money. I know it's not top of the market, but $25, $30 million, that can be invested in other places that you can take advantage of with JJ McCarthy on a rookie deal. Now, Jane Daniels and the Commanders, they were able to turn around that defense. I know the defense struggled against the run, but you brought in Bobby Wagner. You brought in Frankie Louvu. You brought in Marshawn Lattimore later in the season. You could do a lot with that money. So the Vikings are probably thinking in the back of their minds, hey, if we believe in JJ McCarthy and we think he can be similar to Sam, if not better, why wait? Like, why are we wasting the time when JJ doesn't cost any money and we can build around him at the highest rate? And we could get the best team on the field right now. These next 2 to 3 seasons, if you believe in JJ McCarthy, you can have a great team around him. You're already paying Justin Jefferson $35 million a year. That is like a quarterback salary. If you add on Sam Darnold on top of that, it's a lot of money. It's a lot of money. So they're probably looking at this saying, hey, let's try and take advantage of the JJ window right now. We think he can be as good as Sam. And that means JJ's going to have to be pretty good. I know that most Vikings fans are probably ready to move on from Darnold because of the bad taste in their mouths. But if JJ comes out and is not very good, that's a huge setback because Sam had a great season. You go watch the Falcons game. Go watch the Cardinal game, the last drive. Think about the game-winning touchdown or field goal drives that Sam took us on this year. He made a lot of big time plays when he had to. And you're taking a risk if you go with JJ, because I think you can count on Sam to probably get them back to the playoffs next year if he comes. And ask a Jets fan. Getting to the playoffs is not guaranteed. So you could have a great roster. You have a great roster one year, but then they can all blow up pretty quickly. So it is a risk. Last thing I want to talk about, and we're going to do a deeper dive on the season for all the NFC North teams. That'll come out tomorrow with Jack, with Ziggy. Potentially producer Zach will be here as well. But I want to talk about the Packers for a second here. Year 2 of Brian Gutekunst's plan. And I have to say, as far as plans go for general managers, pretty good start here. Divisional loss at the end of year 1. Huge success. More successful than any Packer fan could have imagined. And then this year you have the wild card loss to the Eagles. You lose the last 3 games of the year to the Vikings, to the Bears, breaking your 11-game win streak over them, and then kind of flaming out in Philadelphia. Again, I totally agree with all Packers fans that from the beginning of that game with the Keyshawn Nixon fumble, horrible call, set that game in the wrong direction from the beginning when it shouldn't have. But Philadelphia, for the most part, was in control of that game. I know the Packers had opportunities from an outside party perspective. In fact, someone who was rooting for the Packers in that game, it always felt like Philly was going to win that football game. And that Green Bay, if they were going to be stealing it from the Eagles. But I think you can look at the whole of this season and say, given the expectations of the team, given the expectations for Jordan Love, yes, it was a disappointing season. Still a very good season. 11-6 is an awesome record. I said a second ago, if you're a Jets fan, you'd do anything for 11-6. Playoff games are they're exciting. Like, you need them for your fan base. And the Jets just haven't been there for a long time. So I don't want to diminish what the Packers did. But I do want to say, if they want to get back to the place they want to go, and that's the Super Bowl. In Green Bay, the Super Bowl is the expectation. And I know that's a high one, but you're the Packers. You're the Green Bay Packers. You want to win Super Bowls. It starts and ends in the NFC North. They were 1-5 in the division this year. 1-5. They had 6 losses on the season. 5 of them came in their own division. You need these home playoff games. Matt LaFleur said it. You need to get them. They should have been 0-6. They should have lost to the Bears. They blocked the kick at the end of the game. Versus the Lions, the last 3 seasons, they're 1-5. They've lost 6 actually the last 7. 2-4 the last 3 years against the Vikings. I mean, you have to win division games at the end of the day. I'm not sure what it comes down to, what the issue is here in Green Bay, whether it's a lack of preparation, a lack of execution. It's not a talent problem because the Packers get back into all these games. But look at this year against the Lions. They trailed 17-3 and 17-7 at halftime. The Vikings, 28-7 and 13-3 at halftime. That seems like it's something LaFleur has to fix. That's them coming out not ready to play in these games. Again, it's not talent because you've seen, at least other than the first Lions game where Jordan Love was clearly injured. I can't remember if Malik came in. I think Malik did come in at the end. But in the other 3 games, they came roaring back and were playing better than the Vikings and Lions by the end of the games. The leads were just too insurmountable at that point. So it's not a talent problem. Because we've seen that when they're on, they're just as good, if not better, than these other teams, elite teams, the Vikings and Lions this year. I know they lost in the playoffs, but they combined for 29 wins. that doesn't just happen. So that needs to be fixed, first of all. You can't be losing all these division games. On the other side of things, you can also look at they were 2-5 against playoff teams, and one of those wins was against the Rams without Puka, without Cooper Kupp. Very different Rams team, not a playoff team. So really, they were 1-5 against playoff teams. Like, this was not the Packers' year. You could be disappointed, but when you look at all that, 1-5 in division, I'm going to say 1-5 against playoff teams, because you also lost to the Eagles there. They didn't deserve to go on a run this year. They weren't playing good football. If they had gone on a run, it would have been more surprising to me than last season. Because last season, you saw 8 straight games, 9 straight games, whatever it was, of a really good football team. This year, they limped into the playoffs, and they were knocked out kind of the way you would expect it to, uninspired. They need to take that jump now with year 3 of Jordan Love. Something needs to happen there. And they need to find a way to get back in control of their own division, which is hard. Like the Vikings have a Lions problem too. Like the Vikings can't beat the Lions anymore. Detroit's a really good football team. They dominate in the trenches. The Packers need to go back to the drawing board. Like everything in the NFC North right now, and I'm including the Vikings in here too, because the Vikings are not in control of this division. You need to figure out how to beat Detroit. And until they can do that, it's going to be hard for me to see the Packers going on a Super Bowl run. You look at the NFC and AFC Championship Game history here. Let me see if I have it here. 10 of the last 12 NFC Conference Championship games have been won by the home team. 9 of the last 12 have been won in the AFC by the home team. Now, granted, one of those NFC games was Brady beating the Packers in Green Bay, but you get the point. Everyone knows it's you'd rather be at home than not. And with the Lions as good as they are, and maybe losing Aaron Glenn, Ben Johnson will change things next season. They've lost more of that coaching staff. We'll see how many players are poached from them over the course of this offseason. But until the Packers are able to win the division again, and I don't know when that's going to be, it is hard to see a Super Bowl run happening. They're good enough that they can go on the road. I mean, they showed it last year. They went on the road and beat up on the Cowboys. Probably should have beat the 49ers. It's just really hard to do it. There's a reason that you see so few wildcard teams go on these Super Bowl runs. That's part of what made Jaden Daniels' run so impressive. So that one, he was a rookie, of course, but two, that they were going on the road and they beat a good Bucs team. They upset Detroit. There was no world where I saw them going into Philly. And the other thing, too, is usually the wild card teams, they're just not as good. So you need to win the division. You need to have those home games. You just need to be able to beat good teams. And I know that sounds dumb, but that's the case here. There can't be a Super Bowl expectation if you're not one of the top 4 seeds in your conference. It's hard to do that. One of the ways I think they can get there, I've seen a lot of Packers fans saying that they don't feel the need for a number 1 receiver. I cannot disagree more. You saw what happened. Like, look, when they're all healthy, it's a great receiving room. I get that. Jaden Reid had a phenomenal year. Christian Watson, before he got hurt, I think he might even be the best receiver in that room. Probably Reid, but Christian Watson's awesome. Romeo Doubs had his moments. Wicks, Dontavian Wicks, good. I don't think he took the step forward that I thought he might this year, but still, as far as number 4 receivers in the league go, very good. It's just, if you're going to play if they're healthy game, you also have to imagine, they haven't been healthy. These are guys that get hurt a lot, especially Christian Watson. Who knows what's going to happen next season with him recovering from the knee injury. So I look around the league and I'm like, think about the quarterbacks who have taken a step forward. Tyreek and Tua. Tua went from 16 touchdowns and 10 picks to 25 and 8 when they got Tyreek killed. Joe Burrow and Chase. I know Joe Burrow got hurt, but he went from 13 and 5 to 34 and 14. Jalen Hurts and AJ Brown, 16 touchdowns, 9 interceptions to 22 and 6 the following year. Of course, the big one is always Josh Allen. You talk about adding Stephon Diggs. And these quarterbacks get better year to year, too. There was a huge year 3 leap for Josh Allen. He went 20 touchdowns and 9 interceptions with 3,000 yards to 37 touchdowns, 10 picks, 4,500 yards. Look at the teams that were in the divisional round, right? We said this on the show before. You either saw the elite of the elite quarterbacks, and there are 4 of them right now. We all know it's Mahomes, it's Burrow, it's Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson. It's either one of those 4 who were playing, so you got that with the Bills, the Chiefs, and the Ravens, or it was a team that had an elite receiver. You had Terry McLaurin with the Commanders, who had a phenomenal year. And Jaden Daniels was also kind of playing like one of those elite quarterbacks. Nico Collins, he is a top 10 receiver in football right now with CJ Stroud. Amon-Ra and Goff, Puka with Stafford. Look at the other playoff teams, right? Justin Jefferson, the Vikings, I know they flamed out. They won 14 games, right? You saw the best version of Sam Darnold ever. The other teams that did not have either the elite of the elite quarterbacks or a stud receiver, Chargers, Broncos, Steelers, Packers. All of them were blown out, pretty much. They didn't, Justin Herbert's great, but he's not on that level of the elite quarterbacks right now. I think Jordan Love can get there, but right now he's not on that tier 1 level in the NFL. I think you got to get him some help. And maybe the name's T. Higgins. That's the one that everyone's going to be talking about. Younger guy, perfect fit with Green Bay too, given his build and what he's great at. I don't know. I truly don't know where I stand yet on whether or not I think he can reach that elite tier. He's been in the shadow of Jamar Chase basically his whole career, where if you give this guy the chance, yeah, maybe he turns into one of these studs. And if you have anything like the A.J. Brown impact for Jalen Hurts, like the Eagles, you take A.J. Brown away, they are not going to the Super Bowl, right? They're not a Super Bowl team without A.J. Brown. Saquon Barkley gets all the attention. Jalen Hurts gets a lot of attention, but A.J. Brown is just as important to that offense. Look at them with and without him. Look at their record this season. So I think if you add T. Higgins, that's one guy that's going to be brought up. And my God, if he does emerge the way some people think, then how are you stopping this offense, right? If you have T. Higgins with Jaden Reed as your 2, Watson comes back. I mean, now it's just an embarrassment of riches. We'll see who's all there by the end of this. But with Josh Jacobs, the solid offensive line, there were times this year where if one of the guys was out, the Packers felt out of rhythm. They felt out of sync. And having an alpha dog receiver changes that a little bit. Who knows? Devontae Adams is there. Chris Godwin. I don't think those guys have it anymore. Adams, maybe. An interesting one that people are going to get mad at me when I say this, but Tyreek Hill would be someone that I at least think about. It would be wrong for so many reasons. I don't think Tyreek wants to play in the cold. Just the financial ability to get him would probably be tricky. He's a locker room problem. There's so many reasons to not go after Tyreek Hill. If you're a Packer fan, that Packers fans would say, why even think about that? He's really damn good at football, though. Like, he's amazing. I know he had a down year, and he's going to be 31 next year. But if you got 2 good years of Tyreek Hill on the Packers, again, this won't happen. But if you did get 2 great years of Tyreek Hill on the Packers, he is so good that could elevate them to the Super Bowl level. And I'm not kidding when I say that. I'm not just trying to garner views or anything. If you had excellent Tyreek Hill, I don't know how you stop the Packers. That's what you need. And this is what I'm saying about T. Higgins. Do you think T. Higgins can get to the A.J. Brown, Tyreek Hill, prime Devontae Adams, Justin Jefferson level, or at least close? Like Lions fans will get mad. Like Amon-Ra St. Brown, can he be as good as Amon-Ra St. Brown or Nico Collins or Puka Nacua? I think a lot of people would say yes. And if that's the case, you got to go get him. That could change everything. And the Packers just never, when Gutekunst went after all the receivers in the draft, that was like the first time Packers fans were like, wait, we can draft receivers? We can go get talent to help out our quarterback? So I would go get that number 1 receiver and try and build out an unstoppable offense. That's how you beat the Lions right now, right? You got to outscore them because they're going to keep scoring no matter what. All right, we'll wrap it up there. It's kind of a long show. I hope everyone enjoyed it. Just me solo. We'll be back tomorrow with Packers, Vikings, Bears, and Lions. A little deeper dives into them. What went wrong this season? What can be fixed? Ziggy and Jack will be here, and we're gonna have a lot of fun. The offseason rolls on. We'll get our drafts back. Maybe we'll do a draft too. Those are fun. I think I enjoy talking about just random topics sometimes. I don't know if you guys do. Let me know if you enjoy listening to those topics. But just have fun, right? We'll see you soon.